Welcome to Life Talk for July 12th, 2017. I'm Mark Crutcher.
And I'm Renee Hobbs. Thanks for joining us.
Well, we had the show we did the other day, we had 3 different subjects, and that show was very, very well received. We got a lot of
comments and shares,
right.
and people viewing it.
So I think our people are getting out there and pushing the Life Talk, and we really appreciate that. And if you could continue to do that, it would really help us. We need to spread the word as far and wide as we can. And we try to bring stuff here on Life Talk that the secular media is not going to expose because they're on the side of the pro-aborts, of course.
Absolutely.
So they're not going to expose it. So we try to do that. And the only way that we can really be effective at that is if you share it with your friends and put it out on every place that you can. And we really appreciate the help. But it was obvious that you guys are doing a good job because we got a lot of feedback from that show, that last show that we did.
Yeah. That show was a good show, too. I mean, it was a very topical show.
Right.
What was going on.
Well, so is this one.
Yes.
And this one's an example of something we've been telling people about for years.
Yes.
And now we have another of many real-world examples of this. In Georgia, a woman says that her pastor got her pregnant when she was 16 years old. He'd been sexually abusing her since she was 15, for a year. Got her pregnant and took her for an abortion to get himself off the hook, obviously. This thing had all the earmarks of everything that we see.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
He took her for an abortion. The abortion clinic never reported anything,
Right.
And we knew that,
Right.
because the abuse continued,
Right.
for years afterward.
Mm-hmm. Well, he manipulated her. Not only did he take her in for one abortion, he took her in for 2 abortions.
Right.
And not only was she the only one, when she came out and exposed
Right.
what had happened, another girl came forward. So there is no telling how many girls have actually come forward, that he has abused,
Right.
that is afraid to come forward because he manipulated them. And he said things to them using the Bible as a justification of sexually abusing these girls. And they're young and they're naive, and who knows what their upbringing was like.
And he took advantage of that.
He took total advantage of these girls.
But the other thing he took advantage of was knowing that he could take them to a Planned Parenthood or some other abortion mill,
Right.
and they'd keep their mouth shut.
Yeah, that would cover for him.
They would cover for him,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that's true. I want to get back to that in a minute, but before we do, the irony here is that the pro-aborts often use stories like this as a justification for the legalization of abortion.
Why it should be, yeah.
Right. And, it's mind-boggling that you would make that argument. And they also use it as an example of pro-life hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. And they're saying, well, this guy is a pastor of a church, and that means he's probably pro-life. Well, don't make that leap in logic.
And honestly, he does preach about being pro-life and being against abortion and adultery.
Right, but...
And he was married, mind you.
Right, but that doesn't mean that that's truly what he feels.
No, well, heavens no.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But we know, who are around, we know this hypocrisy happens. Mm-hmm. We had a situation right here in Denton, Texas, years ago, when the life chain was a big deal.
Right.
The lady that lived next door to us at the time was personal friends with the lady that ran the life chain. Mm-hmm. When this lady's daughter got pregnant, the woman who ran the life chain, her daughter got pregnant. She hammered on her to get an abortion, and she actually took her for an abortion.
And she was the coordinator of the life.
Leader of the life chain here in Denton.
Does she know what that means?
Well, sure, she knows what it means. And the pro-aborts, of course, use these kind of stories to say, well, look how hypocritical the pro-lifers are. And yeah, there are some hypocritical pro-lifers out there. Pro-lifers are just like any other group of people.
We're people. That's just it.
But here's the thing that people need to remember is that's not an excuse for making abortion legal. That's a reason that it has to be illegal.
Right.
Because it's so tempting that even people who know that it's murder, if placed in the right sort of circumstances, will have an abortion or advocate an abortion. That's the reason the law has to protect these children.
Yes, that's
because
right.
if their own mother or their own father won't protect them, it has to be up to society to protect them. Mm-hmm. And so this is not a justification for making abortion illegal. For making abortion legal.
Right.
This is a justification for making it illegal.
That's right.
Because this child's life is entitled to be protected.
Yes.
And In this particular case that was here in Denton, this mother was divorced, and she had a new boyfriend. And she was concerned that her new boyfriend would not marry her if her daughter was pregnant. He didn't want another child in the family.
Okay, because he would be afraid, I guess, that the mom would be responsible for taking care of the child.
Right, and he would be responsible if he married her.
Okay.
So he was pushing on her to have an abortion, and to keep from losing this gem of a guy, she pushed her daughter, who was very pro-life, have an abortion. And I saw the girl several years later at the grocery store that was right next door to us here at this office. And I won't even go into describing what this child was like, but she was so scarred. I mean, it was very obvious that how scarred up this girl was.
Sure, yeah.
Because here you had a pro-life girl that you coerced into having an abortion.
Yeah. I don't know how long the mom had been pro-life and how much she talked about it in front of her kids, but I mean, even just a little bit, kids soak up so much information.
Right.
You know?
It's sad. But anyway, let's go back to this particular story. What the abortion lobby's arguments about hypocrisy and all that stuff, what it really does is it deflects attention away from their pedophile protection racket. Now, we've been saying for years, and it is in fact true, the American abortion industry is operating a pedophile protection racket, and we proved it. If you don't think we proved it, go to childpredators.com, see the undercover sting operation that we did, listen to all the tapes, over 800 tapes that we made of every abortion clinic in this country and every Planned Parenthood facility in this country. They are operating a pedophile protection racket.
Yes, they are. They are covering 100% for the pedophiles.
Right. We had an actress who was 24 years old, but she had the voice of a 12-year-old or 10-year-old, actually. And we had her portray a 13-year-old girl that was pregnant by a 22-year-old adult who was married, by the way. We even had her throw that in. And she was seeking an abortion in order to protect him, to keep her parents and the police from finding out about this sexual relationship. And 91% of the abortion clinics in this country and the Planned Parenthood family planning clinics, whatever you want to call them, even if they don't do abortions, they refer for them, 91% of them agreed to help that child. What they perceived was a 13-year-old being raped by a 22-year-old. They agreed to help conceal that by keeping their mouth shut, despite the fact that many of those people told this girl that they were mandatory reporters and that she was being raped and they had a duty to report it. When they tell her things like, when you come in here, don't use your real name. Don't tell us where you live. Don't give us your right address. Don't give us your phone number. And we won't say anything. When you come in, tell us that you're 18. We don't check IDs anyway. Or tell us that your boyfriend is 15 and he's the one that got you pregnant. We don't check on this stuff. They are operating a pedophile protection racket. And this is an example of what happens. They ignore the mandatory reporting laws.
Well, in one of the phone calls, they were actually reading a packet of what they were supposed to say
By
to
law.
this girl that had that was underage.
Right.
And she did not go off script at all. I mean, she wanted the girl to stay quiet, and so.
Right. But she did read, like you said, she read off this, well, here's what we're supposed to do. And you could hear in the background papers being
shuffled
around.
around.
So she's reading something. She said, no, we're supposed to call the police. But when you come in here, just, tell us that you're 22 or whatever.
Right.
Now, here's a 13-year-old. They can't tell is not 22 years old. But she says, we don't check.
Yeah.
So.
And then years later, we did another child predator report, and it's also on the lifedynamics.com under reports, and it's Child Predator Report Part 2.
Right.
Which is the real cases, and those are very detailed as well, and the protection of the children that are being abused.
No, the protection of the pedophiles.
I'm sorry,
exploitation
of
of the children.
Yes.
And, you've heard me. I've been on hundreds of, and many times they were national broadcasts. I was on Fox News O'Reilly one time. And I have openly stated, and I will continue to state, and I'll say it again right now, the National Abortion Federation, clinics associated with the National Abortion Federation and Planned Parenthood are operating a pedophile protection racket.
Yes.
Now, if that's not true, I just libeled and slandered them. They have a lawsuit against me. I've been doing this since the day we came out with this project.
They're not going to do anything
They're
about it.
not going to sue
No.
because they know if they sue me for libel or slander, we get discovery on their records, and it will show that what we're saying is true.
Well, and I was about to bring that point up with NAF too, because
National Abortion Federation. Right.
that these girls can actually call a 1-800 line, and they will help pay for part of their portion of their abortion, and they very well know what's going on.
And they know they're minors.
There's in the reports, Joseph England, George Joseph England. If y'all go and read that, that is a poster child prime example of what we're talking about here.
Yes. What she's talking about is if you'll go to that report she's talking about on prolifeamerica.com,
Yes.
under reports and
Projects
and reports, you can read the child predator report on there, or you can go to childpredator.com. It's on there as well.
Right.
But look under the real cases at childpredator.com is what she's talking about. There's about 60 in there that we found very easily.
Right.
Found them very easily. And the George Joseph England is kind of a poster child case.
Very much so.
He was raping a young lady. This is in Florida. Believe this or not, this man was in his company was stationed in, was it Thailand or no, Vietnam?
Yeah.
Started out in Vietnam.
Right.
When he was there, he purchased a 3-year-old girl. Began having sex with her the day he got her.
Immediately.
He eventually brought her back to the United States, and he got indicted in California. And of course, being California, they let him out on parole. I mean, on bond, and he took off and changed his name, wound up in Florida, and still had this little girl with him. He raped her for a number of years, took her for abortions. They know of at least 8 and maybe 9 abortions that this child had. Not one of these clinics reported it. Not one of them.
Not one. No.
And she wound up, being this guy's sex slave for all these years. And I'm telling you right
And
now.
she had 8 abortions total.
8 at least 8
Yeah.
that they know of, and maybe 9.
Yeah.
And he's in prison right now. He's in the state penitentiary in Florida, and California's got a hold on him if he ever gets out of there. I don't think he will, because I think he got like 65 years or something in prison.
Yeah.
But if he ever does get free in Florida, he'll be picked up in California. So he's never getting out of prison. But I'm telling you something else. Every person that worked at those Planned Parenthood facilities and at those National Abortion Federation facilities, they ought to be in the same prison cell with him.
Yeah. The clinic workers.
The clinic
ones
workers.
that schedule the abortion.
And failed to make a report.
Yep.
And you mentioned in this particular case here, there was a second girl that he began to abuse, and that's the reason that you have mandatory reporting laws. If the abortion clinic that this girl was taken to when she was 15, and he signed in as her father, he was there,
Yes.
and he paid for the abortion. If they had adhered to the Florida state law, Georgia state law that requires them to do mandatory reporting, had they adhered to that, her abuse would have stopped right then, and this other girl would not have been abused in the future because he'd have been in jail.
That's right.
And any of the other girls that he abused. If 2 of them have come forward from one congregation, you know how many there might have been in that congregation?
Well, yeah. No.
It's no way of knowing,
Yeah. There's no way of knowing.
but there's a bunch.
Yeah.
If 2 have come forward,
Right.
you can bet there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And all the children that got raped, after the first time this guy took a girl to an abortion clinic and no report was made, all of those rapes are on the conscience, or should be on the conscience, of those people at those abortion clinics, if they had consciences. If they had consciences, of course, they wouldn't be working at an abortion clinic, so I guess it goes without saying that this is a small potatoes deal. But the fact is, again, when these people don't do the mandatory reporting, and eventually the guys get caught, like these 60-some-odd cases that we found, the people that didn't do the mandatory reporting ought to be given the same exact sentence. They're as responsible for the rapes of those children as these people at these abortion clinics are. They ought to go to prison.
That's right. I agree with that.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
And by the way, real quick, Melissa says hi to you.
Well, thank you. Hi, Melissa.
And then, so Erica, I'm very sorry about your situation. She, her ex left her because she refused to have an abortion, and they divorced, which,
Her name's Erica? Well, Erica, you won't be the one crying yourself to sleep 20 years from now that we have to deal with on the phones.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
Right?
It's
and
sad,
and
a
let me
sad
tell you
situation.
something. I'll tell you something else, Erica. Any man that would father a child and then insist that the woman that he fathered that child with abort that child you didn't lose a thing. He's not worth the powder it would take to blow him to hell. I'm telling you right now. I hate to be crude about it, but that's a fact. So, Erica, I know that you may be hurting over this situation, but I'm going to tell you right now, you didn't lose the thing. This may be the best thing that ever happened to you, because what you did was you traded a no-good, worthless man for a baby. And that's a deal worth making 1,000 times a day, I promise you. So,
one more thing.
okay.
No big head here.
What?
Dorothy says that Planned Parenthood operates a pedophile protection ring, and that you've been studying them for years. You're an honest, loving, pro-life man. Where to go?
What do I say?
With a love of humanity.
What can I say?
It's all true.
No. Anyway.
I knew he'd go on from that. He didn't stay long.
Anyway, anything else we got?
No, just as usual, if you'll just send in your comments, questions, suggestions, all that good stuff, so we know what's going on out there in your community. We can talk about that and get the word out.
Yep. If you see something in the news you think we need to know about, or we'll do a show about, or you just have an idea for a show, you've got a question you want us to answer, let Renee know. And she's the gargoyle here. She's the keeper of the flame. So I don't learn about it unless you let Renee know. So whatever she doesn't tell me, I don't know, right? I don't know what she doesn't tell me, but I'm sure there's something out there.
It's a secret.
I've caught her and my wife conspiring to keep things from me. So anyway, I just always assume that if my wife and Renee are conspiring to keep something from me, it's probably something I don't want to know about anyway. So, anyway.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all the time we have. Until next time, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how the killing stops. We'll see you next time.
See you later.